Welcome to week 3. This is your tool week. I'm giving you 19 tools. And actually some of the tools have sub-tools, so it's even more than 19. But I want to give you as many things to try as I can so that you can experiment with this, you can figure out what is going to work for you and for your particular situation. So the thing with techniques is you could become a great technician, but that doesn't make a difference really in love making, right? So I'm going to be telling you these things to do, but I want you to include heart and emotionality and energy and intention behind them, and not just perform them, because if you are just performing them, then they're not going to work as well. The other thing with tools is that knowing the tools, knowing the names of the tools, having this list in your mind of things to do when you're not feeling safe during sex is good, and it's fine, but it is not the same as using them. It is not the same as practicing them. Even if you try a thing once and you liked it and now you know you have this tool, you will develop a different relationship with this tool the more you use it, the more you practice it. So I don't want you to just watch this video and tuck these things away for a rainy day. I want you to take some of it and make it a regular part of your experience. Like we talked about in week 1, everyone's sex ladder, that sounds really weird, everyone's sex ladder is going to look different, right? And I had you hopefully observe yourself and your experience during a particular intimate encounter. So your ladder every time is going to look different, right? So I can't say this is what happens for you biologically during sex. I can just give you ideas of what most likely happens or what is the most common thing that is happening, but you are the expert of your own ladder. But if you recall, what's in common with everything, and no matter how much up and down you're doing on your ladder and when you're doing it, is connection, right? That's the goal, no matter where you are on your ladder, is that you're also bringing in social engagement, that you also are staying connected and safe. So whether you are in mobilization, so moving and still feeling safe, or not moving, immobilization, and still feeling safe. So even though your ladder is different than mine, and even though today's ladder is different from tomorrow's ladder, our focus is really connection and safety. As you are bringing in some of these new tools and techniques and experimenting with how safe they help you feel, it can be good to kind of wipe the slate clean and think of this as an experimental period in your life. And right now, even though the title of this course is the Polyvagal Orgasm, we shift focus away from orgasm. We shift focus away from performance. We shift focus away from the end result of how great I'm gonna feel after this, and instead make this about process, about experimentation, about creating new, healthy neural pathways, right? So that we can remove old narratives and bring in this new phase of, yeah, I'm gonna try this. How comfortable can I feel? How close can we be? How safe and connected can I stay? Does this help? Does this help? Does this help? Even if it's just a fraction of your normal sex experience, right? How connected can we be outside of sex? How safe can I feel at the beginning? Well, what's it like in the middle if I do this? Well, what if we stop here? Well, what if we start in the middle, right? So this is a period where you can think of it as trial and error so that you can have as much of a fresh start here as possible. Linda Savage says that sex is not an act, it's energy. And so you can begin to think about it this way. And just like it's really in the zeitgeist about, art, any kind of expressive experience, we are moving away from end result performance orientation into the experiential process of it to see what's waiting for us in the experience of it. So remember that shift as you're trying out these tools. It may help you to remember that we aren't having to take all of our normal ways of behaving, our normal ways of relating, these things that we're used to, and having to stop them so that we can start something else. Sometimes that can feel really laborious and overwhelming. Like, I'm 50. How am I supposed to stop doing these things I've done for 30 years and then start moving them somewhere else to do them differently? So it may help to think about neuroplasticity and how we have competitive neuroplasticity, which means that we don't have to do that. We don't have to do all that work of stopping these ways and starting the new ways. All we have to do is try something new. It is not on us to think about these changes as stopping. We're just starting. So if it helps you to think of a shift over, you can do that. If it helps you to think of, we're done with this, now we're gonna do this. But if that seems really difficult, then you can just think about neuroplasticity. And that means that I can just try something new and repeat it enough times, and those old ways are going to wither. The old ways of behaving and relating won't exist anymore because I will have traveled new pathways enough times. These tools that I'm presenting do fall into different kinds of categories, although they often overlap. I've sort of divided it up into things that you can do before, just before, during sex, after sex, outside of sex by yourself, outside of sex with your partner, and outside of sex with other people. Now, in the bonus footage from last week from Polyvagal Partnership, it was all about how to strengthen those neural pathways of relationship. So all of those things in that video apply to this work as well. With your partner, absolutely, and with other people. So what I want you to do is flood yourself with positive experiences of relationship. I want you to limit exposure to unsafe relationship and flood yourself with fun, playful, calm, feeling good experiences with friends and family. That will really, really help you feel safer during sex. It just does. And the final category is what tools can be used without telling your partner. So you may be in a committed relationship, you may be in relationship transition, or you may not be a relationship kind of person. So you might be in a situation where you can confide in your partner and say, I'm taking this course and here's what she is saying and some of it's weird, but let's try this thing, what do you think? But that might not be appropriate for your situation. So one of these categories is a list of the tools that you can use just on your own without divulging to anyone what it is that you're doing. If you are one of the people who has extreme difficulty even approaching sex, the topic of sex, you don't even know where to start, it overwhelms you just thinking about it, then what you're going to be focusing on is not throwing yourself into sex, but cultivating connection and safety with your partner outside of sex. Cultivating safety and connection with other people outside of sex, okay? But if you are in a marriage where thinking about having sex with your partner is already activating, then you will want to focus on strengthening your relationship with your partner in other arenas, in just regular daily interaction, okay? Dr. Porges says that safety, especially in sex, is tied to predictable environment. So that's not one of the tools that I'm presenting necessarily, because it's not really a somatic tool, but it is important for you to know that having the same setup, having the same place, having the same expectation around what's happening in your environment. I mean, we are environmental creatures, so it makes sense. We are always assessing what's around us for safety. Well, safety is definitely tied to predictability. So if you can make your surroundings the same every time, it's going to help you. Also, a predictable partner is going to help you feel safe. It doesn't mean that that is a requirement for safety in sex, but it does help. Okay, our first tool is using the voice. This is what I have a lot of experience with. I've worked with many, many women on how to improve definitely their sexuality, their relationships, their overall relationship to their own power and truth and self-expression. The voice is a magnificent way to arrive at whatever your goals are. In this case, it has long been known that the mouth and the jaw and the throat are very closely related to a woman's pelvis, that the throat and the voice box and the cervix are very much connected. Energetically, they are connected, but also physically. So they're formed at the same time in the womb and from the same small group of cells. They're very much related as far as the shape that they're in, right? And they're also both in-out passages for the body. Midwives know that when a woman's mouth is soft, then she can prepare and soften even more for birth. And the same is true in sex. So if your mouth and lips and jaw are all very clamped, which can happen, it's so common, clamp down, bearing down, right? At any point during sex. It can happen at any point for a variety of reasons. And you can counteract that. You can allow yourself to feel safer and softer and more receptive, open to more sensation if you intentionally open your mouth, soften your lips, soften your jaw, and make noises. Okay, that can be audible sighs. Those are very, very good for feeling relaxed, for releasing tension. This natural pitch that we go up and down is naturally relaxing for us. And it will help the rest of this space also relax. The ums and the ahs, anything like that, where you are allowing yourself to make noise. It will be calming and activating at the same time. And when something is calming and activating at the same time, it increases our ability to stay present in the experience. You're also allowing your identity, the sound of who you are, to be expressed, to be heard. If it's difficult to just release that tension in your jaw or to drop open your mouth, you can always just reach up and give yourself a little massage all around here to help loosen that space. Singing is a wonderful thing to do outside of sex to practice this very thing about getting comfortable with your own self-expression. So develop a singing practice. Sing along to the radio, sing in the shower, sing with your partner, sing with your kids. Sing more, it will help. As well as a voice work exercise called calling. Calling is a very intense experience. It is very healing. It is very freeing. It's basically you being really loud. And it's an opportunity for you to take up a massive amount of space with the sound of who you are. Paul Newham calls it your acoustic identity. So your acoustic identity is coming out of your mouth very loudly. We have so few opportunities to be really loud, especially as adults. So this is you being really loud and filling the space that you're in and beyond it with the sound of your own voice, the sound of who you are. It helps you become very comfortable with your own power. And that can be difficult. So my advice is, if you try this particular exercise and it is very difficult, then that is a good sign that you should do it some more. It should be a regular practice. And so for all of my voice work clients, I recommend it as something to regularly do. Everyone can do it. As I said, it may seem like you can't, or it may seem very overwhelming, and that's okay. You just stop and you try again another day. But everyone can do it. It is halfway between a shout and a sung note. And it's normally done on the word hey, sort of hearkening back to our evolutionary roots when we may have had to call across a very long distance to get someone's attention. And so on the word hey, it sort of accesses this primal part of who we are, which is also something that we don't very often do as adults. I'm going to demonstrate for you, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that I want to say about it. I think there is. The first time in this demonstration, I'm going to do it on the word hey, because that's the classic call. The second time is tailored for this course, and this is going to be on the word yes. So the word yes is associated with many things for us, but really it's associated with sex, right? In our collective experience. Yes. Yes is a yes to pleasure, a yes to extreme sensation. A yes is consent. A yes is this embracing of whatever it is that you are experiencing. So to hear your own yes, to be able to open, because we're not really pushing it out, we're allowing it out. And so once you have a supported sound from lower in your body, then it's really just a matter of the breath accessing that space and allowing that sound out. So you are allowing a power, huge, loud yes that is you to be created and released and then heard. And hearing yourself, hearing your own voice echoing back to you is very powerful in and of itself. And that is a way to expand our sense of who we are and to allow more of who we are to be welcomed back into our daily lives, into our accepted spectrum of what's allowed to come out. So we're much less likely to hide these aspects of self that may have been rejected or shrouded in shame, because lots of our sexuality, we've been taught, will get us judged, will get us rejected, and should be shameful. But voice work, singing, using your voice, especially in these sort of extreme ways, like calling, will allow those aspects of self to be reintroduced. And all of a sudden, you've heard yourself do it, and you're still safe. And it's okay. It's okay to be this way. It's okay to have a loud, intense yes coming from your pelvis. That is okay. And it feels great. Oh, I could be this too, and still be me. And still be okay. What we don't want with calling is to rasp out the vocal cords. So it's not a hey! That's really coming from the throat, and that's how you know you're doing it wrong. What you want is for it to come lower. And so that's why we shift our center of gravity when we're doing it, so that it's a reminder to the body that the sound is coming from down low and is supported from the belly or from the pelvis. To practice first, it might help for you to just say the word hey, and you can imagine that someone across the street is stealing an old lady's purse and you're wanting to stop it, and so you say, hey, 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 hey. So right, you're not focusing on here, hey, hey, hey. It's more, hey, hey. And when it's motivated by emotion, it's a lot easier to be more supported. Hey, put that down, hey, right? So it's much more like that. You are, like I said, you're going to shift your weight. So you're going to straddle. So I have this foot in front of this one, and my weight is shifted back on my back foot, on my right foot. It helps to imagine that you're holding a heavy ball, and that as you shift weight towards the front, you're throwing this ball over a giant mountain in front of you. You've got to throw your voice like you're throwing this ball over that mountain. So it looks like this. I'm turning, my weight is shifted to my back leg, and I'm throwing that ball over the mountain. So for the first one, I'm going to be showing you the hey, and then I'll show you the yes. So I'm taking a nice breath. I'm remembering that it's coming from this lower place, that I have lots of support. And I'm gathering up my power. Big loud sound is going to feel and reverberate this sense of self and this powerful self that you've just given expression to. You're going to feel it vibrating and buzzing in your head and in your body. But for the polyvagal orgasm, I really want it to be a yes. And that you are able, through your own power, through your own breath and body, send out this magnificent, huge yes into the world. And it reverberates back into your life. Your yes is where your power is. Yes! You'll need to find a place to do this that obviously will not be disturbed or bothered by your extreme volume. I encourage you to do it. It is so, so worth it. So the relaxation of the mouth, jaw, and throat through massage or through intention or through the sighing, making these sounds of ums and ahs of pleasure. Those things are happening during sex, and the calling and the singing is going to be happening outside of sex. I don't want you to do the calling exercise during sex. Okay. We all have something called a sensorimotor loop. And all that means is that sensory information comes in and a motor response comes out. That's the way that it's supposed to happen. Sensory information comes in and we move as a response to that sensory information. But that loop gets interrupted very early on in our experience of life. It gets interrupted because nothing is perfect and nothing works in a perfect way. We have environments that are not supportive. We have stress, we have toxicity, and we have many situations, especially early, where we can't trust our primary caregiver, we can't trust our environment. And so the sensory motor loop gets messed up. It gets interrupted. And so we grow up and we have sensory information coming in and we ignore it, or we override it, or it goes over us and we get consumed by it. So something that you can practice is positive completions of the sensory motor loop. And you can practice that outside of sex and during sex. And what I mean by that is, as sensory information is coming in, you can identify it, and then you can intentionally respond to it. So if I'm lying in the dentist chair and the light is very bright, I can close my eyes, right? And then if the hygienist is poking me, then I can wince and move away. Or I can say, ugh! Instead of just lying there and letting the bright light shine in my eyes. That's a broken loop. Or white knuckling it and letting her just poke at me, and because I'm polite, or because I don't want her to stop, or I don't want her to think that I'm asking too much or I'm a bother, then I just keep my mouth open and be really still and wait for it to be over. No, you have a sensory nudge, we'll call it. You have a sensory opportunity, and then you meet that. You say yes to it somehow, in some way, as best you can. When you have to lie there in the dentist chair and you're paying to be there, there's only so much you can do. You can't say, this hurts, I'm walking away. You need it. So there are, like I said, these little things that you can do that will sustain and complete that loop. So you can practice that during your day outside of the experience of sex quite easily. So when the music is loud, you turn it down. When there's something happening you don't like, you walk away from it. If you don't like the feel of something, then you take it off of you, or you get something that you do like. If someone is coming into your space and it's too much, you respond to that too much. Ask them to step away. Ooh, this is too close for me. Or you step away, you change somehow as a response to that sensory information. You can think of it as your body doing you this favor and offering you this thing. Hey, this isn't great. Can you help? And then your response is helping. Instead of looking at sensory information as kind of a burden, you can look at it as a request, and you're able to meet that request. Now, not all sensory information is negative. Much sensory information is really positive and enjoyable. And so you can respond in a positive way. If you like someone touching you on the arm, you can lean in closer. You could give the person a hug, right? But the sensory coming in is asking for a response out. So during sex, you can also do this. And it's kind of a nice thing to experience. It feels really empowering. And the more that you have these completed sensory motor loops, the healthier your system is overall. The more connected and safe you can stay all the time and during sex. You don't experience as much overwhelm when you start to complete that loop. Another huge marker of health and a regulated system is being able to hold your perception of what's happening inside alongside your perception of what's happening outside. So what you're experiencing, but also what is in the environment around you. Being able to be in and out at the same time. And that is especially true in sex. You want to be able to be very clear about what it is that you want, what it is that you're experiencing, to be inside of your experience, but also to be participating in what's happening between the two of you. You want to stay connected. You want to stay present. And so very often what happens is that we do one or the other, and we sacrifice one for the other. And not just in sex, but all the time. So if the environment is too much, then I withdraw and I'm only in my own experience. Or if being in my own experience is too much, I check out and I'm only present in the environment. We tend to hang out in extremes when it comes to this, but we can cultivate a balance. And we do that by, like everything else, starting really small. So what you can do outside of sex to begin to cultivate the ability to feel your experience and be present in what's happening at the same time is you lie down and you feel where your body is against the floor. You bring your awareness there. You have your eyes closed. You're only focused on where you're touching the surface, right? Your grounding, your absolute safety. And very slowly, one at a time, you begin to introduce more of the out. So you get really, really in. You understand where you are, how you feel, where the ground is. Your awareness is in your own experience, right? In your body. And in this space where you're touching the floor. So the first step would be to open your eyes and look at something. Can you stare at a spot on the ceiling or on the wall and still feel where you're touching the floor? Can you do both at the same time? Can you have your awareness on what it is that you're looking at and still have your awareness on where your point of contact is with the floor? And if that's too much, you go back. You take a step back, close your eyes again, feel the ground again, feel yourself again, and then open your eyes. Can you do it now? Oh yeah, I feel the balance now. I can do both. And as soon as you master one stage, you move on to the next. And as soon as that next stage is overwhelming, you go back to where you could feel yourself again and then come through the steps again. So the first step would be to open your eyes. The next is to actually move your head and look around. So now you're taking in lots more visual information. The next is to have less contact with the floor. So if you were lying down, then you sit up. So then it's a little bit harder to maintain. If my eyes look weird, it's because I'm sort of doing the practice now. So can I now that I'm sitting up maintain awareness with the floor and with where I'm touching the floor, but also with all these things that I'm looking at now, right? And then you can actually begin to move. Can I move and look and be in my own experience? Can I listen to something and look around and move and still feel me? And this is something that is fun and interesting to play with. And it could be something that you do pretty often or every few days or when you wake up in the morning. But practicing, cultivating the capacity to do both, to be in and out. And during sex, you can practice this too. Same kind of way. And you would just retreat to find yourself again, and then slowly open yourself up to more of what's going on between you, what's going on in the environment, so that you can find and maintain that balance. And as soon as you're too much out, again, you bring yourself back in, and then slowly come back out and try to keep that balance. The next tool is what Jane Clapp calls brain farts, which is intentionally introducing very small motor challenges for you to overcome. So this would be something that you would be doing outside of sex on your own, where you are practicing introducing something difficult that's not a big deal. It's not like, do your taxes. But it's something very, very small, a small motor challenge that feels hard at first, that you are then able to stick with and overcome. So that can be any little balance activity, hopping and jumping and crawling and rolling, or balancing items on plates. But I really like to use balls, specifically really bouncy balls. So tiny bouncy balls or bouncy racket balls, a tennis ball will do. Some kind of ball trick where you've got to try and get it in the basket. I'm thinking of a laundry basket, not a basketball basket. You've got to try to bounce it into the trash can. You've got to bounce it this way and that way. You've got to bounce it up and down 10 times and catch it with your eyes closed. Whatever your threshold is of difficulty, introduce something that is playful and fun, that is hard to physically do, that's just beyond your capability, okay? And then stick with it, even when it feels like, I'm all thumbs here. You know that feeling where you can't do it, Stick with it so that you can feel that shift into, I can do it. You don't have to get perfect at it, but you can do it now. You have experienced that shift from can't do it to do it. And that specific thing, this brain fart, will challenge you in order to develop the capacity to overcome stress. So it's like teaching yourself how to deal with stress and creating this pathway that says, stress is something I can handle. Okay, here's the biggie. It is play. Play, please just play. And I don't mean to get on the floor and move little dolls around or Hot Wheels cars. I mean play with your body. Climb a tree, balance on the edge of the sidewalk, play hide and seek, play tag, play peekaboo, Have tickle fights, have wrestle fights, do the original play like in the bonus material from last week. As many full body playful moments as you can create, do them. Play with balls, play with frisbees, roll around on a yoga ball, play. Make obstacle courses for yourself and for your kids if you have them. Make forts and crawl underneath them. The more you can incorporate play into your life, the better. This is training your system in a huge way. This is training you to be activated and safe at the same time, which is exactly what we need for sex. We are also reinforcing this dopamine pathway that being together with people and moving is safe. We want to link that dopamine to activation and safety at the same time. As kids, we have lots and lots of experience of being activated and safe, of moving around, especially in a coordinated way, moving around together with other people, having interaction while you're moving. And we don't do that so much. Sports are good, dance is good, but often when adults dance, if they go to some kind of group dance place, ecstatic dance or whatever, there's not much interaction, right? There's not lots of face-to-face input that you're having, like there would be when you're running from someone in tag. You're always checking in, right? You're practicing a lot of skills, moving, being together, having this goal-oriented movement where you have to get to base or not get tagged. There's this impetus that is sort of urgent. That's really, really good to combine that feeling with looking at people's faces and even laughing and being engaging in a relaxed way, even when your body is not. This kind of playful attitude and playful space to be in, you can absolutely train for that outside of sex. You can do it on your own. You can do it with other people. You can be playful with your partner. I highly, highly recommend that. And you can also incorporate play into your sex life. So you can be playful during sex. Another huge one is touch. So of course we're having to touch our partners when we're having sex, but so often we touch without feeling. And so we want to introduce ways to touch and feel at the same time. David Schnarch says, it's stressful being physically close to someone from whom you feel totally emotionally distant. Of course, right? So these touch practices I'm going to tell you about are ways to use touch to increase your closeness. So not just rote touch, not just the same old stuff that you do, but ways to deepen the use of touch. And the first is what I referred to in the bonus material last week, but didn't actually teach in that video, which is embracing squeeze. I love this technique. I teach it to everybody. It's so effective and it's so beautiful. I want you to use it. It is a touch technique that is from Svetlana Mazgutova. And so it is a reflex integrative exercise. But what you're going to do is cup your hands and attempt to apply even pressure. You can kind of experiment with how you, especially because the size of your partner's limbs is going to vary a whole lot. But the idea is that you cup your hands so that there's no point around your circle that it has more grip or more pressure than any other point. So typically I do it like this and attempt to apply even pressure. But again, you can experiment with what might work best. Like even that might be better, right? It just depends. What you're gonna do is cup your hands, apply even pressure, not on the joints, but between the joints of the lower limbs. So between the wrist and the elbow and between the ankle and the knee, and that's it. So it's just the lower limbs. You're gonna hold and apply this pressure at each point until you reach that joint. Okay? So I'm not doing it on the wrist, but I'm coming up from the wrist. I'm gonna hold this for 7 seconds, and I'm gonna apply pressure. It's deep pressure. Not to hurt, it should not hurt, but it's not soft. So I'm really gripping. Like when I do this to my husband, I'm exhausted after. That's how hard you should be doing it. So this even pressure, cupped hands, 7 seconds. And then you come up to the next section, 7. And so on until you reach the end of the lower limb. So 7 seconds. Okay? But you do that for each one 3 times. So 3 times up the lower arm, 3 times up the other lower arm, 3 times up one leg, lower leg, and 3 times up the second lower leg. 7 seconds each. Okay? That's the embracing squeeze method. This is a touch technique that communicates so much safety. People feel incredibly close afterward. I teach this to all parents, and they use it on their children, and couples who use it together. Yeah, it's such a connective, relaxing exercise, but it's not just about release of tension, although that is sort of what it feels like when the blood pressure cuff comes off and there's a sort of release of tension. That's not the aim. The aim here is the amount of safety and the holding that says, I've got you. Over and over and over, I've got you. I've got you. So this particular technique is going to be wonderful to do just before sex in order to establish this connection between the two of you. You can absolutely use it during sex. So if you feel like you've lost the connection or you've lost the safety, you can do it to yourself, or you can ask your partner, can you do embracing squeeze on me? It doesn't have to be the whole thing, because the whole thing takes a while. You could just say, can you do it on my arm, or can you just do it on my leg? To see if it helps. And then it's also absolutely something that you can use outside of sex as this ritual that you guys do, or you can communicate safety to yourself by doing it to yourself. But this is a really good one to practice and to develop this connection between when we do this embracing squeeze and how good we feel after. Another touch practice is from David Schnark, and it's called Hugging Till Relaxed. This is a very good one. He's super into hugging. So he says that your relationship issues play out in how you hug, and that you can really watch 2 people hug and see into their experience together. How long does it last? How close do they stand? Does one person pull away faster than the other? All those kinds of things are clues about how they relate to one another. And so he feels that you can use hugging to induce a state of relaxation. And so the first step is that you stand on your own 2 feet, put your arms around your partner, focus on yourself, and quiet yourself down. What you're doing during this hug is that you're holding on and letting go at the same time. So you keep doing this process until you're both relaxed. Eventually you will breathe in unison. And he says, the way he describes it is that you're teaching your body to hold on to each other and try to make each other feel good. But it's out of choice, not necessity. It's from a place of stability, not insecurity. And it's done for the other person rather than for your own needs. So you aren't trying to make the other person feel good because you need it. You're just doing it for them to feel good. So try this outside of sex, try this before sex. You can try this during sex. You can just take a pause. Can we hug till relaxed? And you just stand, hold each other. Focus on yourself and quiet yourself down so that it doesn't matter. Your state is not dependent on the other person's state and vice versa. It's a really strong way to self-regulate while being in absolute contact with another person. When we are deeply connected to another person, when we are feeling a lot of resonance, when we are feeling a lot of safety, we naturally will match the other person's muscle tension, posture, facial expression, movement, and their whole sort of vibe. When we're emotionally attuned to someone, that's what happens. We feel like a team, and so we are a team. And it works backwards as well. So we can intentionally mirror another person, match our partner's facial expression, muscle tension, movement pattern, posture, and reach a place of attunement backwards. So it will help us feel connected and feel like a team and feel safe when we are mirroring each other. So this is something that your partner doesn't have to know that you're doing. You can mirror back to your partner what she or he is doing. But also you can talk to your partner about this, and then you can take turns mirroring, right? And as I talked about in the bonus footage from last week, actually doing a practice where you're mirroring each other's movements outside of sex is fantastic for developing empathy and connection. This empathy pathway that we really need to have a safe and connective relationship. So you can put on music and stand and actually mirror each other's movements, right? You can do that. It's very, very good to be doing that as an ongoing practice. It's really effective. Synchronized breathing is related to this. It's also about attunement, but it's maybe a more simple practice. You can also be undetected doing this one. And it's really just synchronizing your breaths. So you can synchronize your breathing to your partner's. And this can be done during sex or outside of sex. You're sitting on the sofa watching Netflix, and you can just copy the inhale and exhale of your partner. Or you can make it more of a connective exercise and sit across from each other, make eye contact, and take turns leading and following the synchronized breaths. When we're trying to maintain connection and safety during sex, it makes absolute sense to bring in as many biological cues of safety as possible. So, the way that we act in social engagement, we've talked about this before, is exactly what it takes to co-regulate with someone else. It's exactly what it takes to send out messages of safety to another person. So these biological cues of safety are the ways that we act when we're in social engagement. And those are facial expression, the movement of these facial muscles, especially the muscles around the eyes, right? That are communicating safety and relaxation. When I am in a state of activation or in freeze, my face will look a lot different. So my muscles will be frozen. If I'm really angry, they'll be frozen. And I'll have flat affect. It'll have no expression if I'm in freeze. So when my muscles are moving around and I'm being expressive, then you can tell that I'm not unsafe. I'm not dangerous, right? Another is an authentic smile. And an authentic smile also involves these looks ridiculous. Also involves these eye muscles, and when my eyes are all crinkly, that's when you know that it's a real smile, because other kinds of smiling look pained or odd. So even if our minds, right, with neuroception, it's underneath our cognition. So even if our minds aren't thinking this is a fake smile, our bodies are knowing in a split second who's real and who's not. So this authentic smiling that's actually engaging the rest of the face. And the third is this voice, the sound of your voice, the prosody or the up and down in pitch of the voice. So again, when I'm down my ladder and I don't have social engagement online, my voice is going to be very monotone. When I'm angry, it's monotone. It's very sharp like this. And when I'm in freeze, it's going to be very quiet and low and monotone, and it's not going to change very much. But when I'm feeling relaxed and good and I'm in social engagement, then that pitch is going to be going up and down. And that's how your body is going to know that I'm safe to listen to and that I'm not a threat. So you can absolutely take advantage of those biological cues of safety during sex and before sex to connect, and outside of sex to create these neural pathways of safety in relationship. So outside of sex, Absolutely communicate with your partner intentionally with authentic smiling, eye contact, the movement of the facial muscles, and this up and down of the voice, so that the two of you can be doing that for each other. You're establishing a foundation of safety between the two of you, which will then, of course, inform your sex life. Smile at strangers on the street. Pay attention to people's facial expressions. Intentionally connect with other people through these cues. Now, during sex, we don't talk a lot, and we probably don't have a lot of face-to-face connection. In fact, Dr. Porges says the difference between play and foreplay is that you're not looking at a face. So he also says that it goes face first, and then voice, and then touch. So face is really the best, this face-to-face communication where you can see me, you can really be comfortable understanding and knowing me and connecting with me when you can see my face. So that's why I'm teaching with video. If this were just audio and I was teaching you without my face, it would be more difficult for you to determine and if I'm safe and to feel safe listening to this. So it's the same thing in the bedroom. It's the same thing all the time. So if you are starting out strong, you're feeling safe and connected, and then you lose the connection, you can go backwards. So if you have now become really deeply into it and your eyes are all closed, or you're down further away from the face on your partner's body, and you start to slip, and you feel the connection being removed from your experience, you start to dip, right? Then you can go backwards. So right now you're just using touch to communicate safety. So maybe you need voice too. So then you can make voice contact. And you could talk about how you're feeling. You could talk about what you want. You can ask your partner what he or she wants, right? You can bring in, you can make sounds, any kind of voice that you can bring back online just to bring in more cues of safety. And if you don't want to do that, or if that's not enough either, then you bring back in the face. You go back and connect with the face, the eye contact and the smiling, and then, oh, there it is. There's the connection. Orienting is a go-to strategy for trauma recovery, for stress and nervous system regulation. You've probably done it. You've probably heard of it. It's very, very common because it works. So orienting is this reflexive mammalian response to something popping up in the environment. We want to look around and see what it is. We need to be able to see our environment to be able to know if we're safe. So we typically spend a lot of time indoors, which will naturally increase our level of stress because we don't know where we are, right? We are inside. We can't see to really know if we're safe or not. So a great way to take advantage of this orienting reflex is to actually stop during sex. If you start to lose the connection, if you start to lose the connection to yourself, if you start to feel unsafe, look around. Look out a window. Look around the room. And when you see no threat, it will help your system calm down. Look out the window at a tree. Stare at that tree. Look out a window and determine where north, east, south, and west are. Right? Orient yourself to your environment and it will help you stay safer during sex. You can also practice orienting anytime that you're starting to feel like you're slipping down your ladder and you need to hold on to something again. You just look. You allow your eyes to see. We mentioned in week 2 about memory and your past experiences influencing whether or not you're going to have a pleasurable orgasm this time. Memory in general is a huge resource from which to draw. So, during sex, you can absolutely access your memories of times when you felt pleasure, safety, and connection all at the same time. And you can overlay that memory on top of your current experience and access those pathways that say, yes, what's happening now is a good thing. So you might want to reflect on some times when you have felt that. They can be sexual or not. Probably it's more effective if they are sexual in nature, but sometime when you felt that link between those three things, pleasure, safety, and connection, and remembering that, actively remembering what that felt like, will help you feel safer and link those three. Be in a position in your body where you link those three things, even in this situation. Another thing you may have heard about is extended exhale. This is huge in polyvagal theory, activating the vagus nerve through an exhale that is longer than the inhale. This is one of the reasons why singing is very calming for the system, because through singing, you're forced to have an extended exhale, right? So this is something that you can use for stress management whenever, but it is highly effective during sex to bring more connection, more safety into the picture. Have an exhale that's twice as long as your inhale. Our breath is very, very related to our emotional state, to our nervous system state. So when we become activated, when we come down our ladder and don't have that social engagement online as well, then there are some things that are co-opted by that system for our safety, right, that we don't have control over. But one of them we still retain control over is the exhale. So absolutely use this loads, use this all the time. Make your exhale twice as long as your inhale and you will feel safer. In service of safety, when we become activated, our vision gets very focused. Of course, right? We're gonna have to fight the thing, or we're gonna have to run away. And so our vision can become very tunneled and focused onto this thing that we have to overcome, onto the danger itself. So another one of these things that is not co-opted by a stressed system is this aspect of vision. So Andrew Huberman talks about panoramic vision. And this is an intentional way to shift your literal focus to bring about a state of calm. And what it is that you still look at one thing, but you intentionally engage your peripheral vision. So right now I'm staring deeply into the lens of this camera, but I am also allowing everything in my field of vision to be included. So I'm not looking around, but I have softened, I'm staring intensely at it, but I have softened my focus. So now I see a yoga mat and roses and a bookcase and a string of lights and a lamp, some file folders. I can see behind me, because this is, I also have the phone, so I can see this sofa, and I can see my body, and my hands are moving down here. I see them too. I see a water bottle, right? So I am really allowing myself to not just stare at this and lose all of this to darkness, but to keep looking at this and then bring in everything else. And that's going to be a trigger to bring more safety back online. We can say, nope, we're not gonna have tunnel vision, because guess what? It's not dangerous right now, it's safe right now. It's safe to have all of this and take everything in. This is a really quick thing you can do whenever, but also during sex. You start to feel that you've lost connection, you've lost safety. Just look at something, it can be your partner, it can be anything in the room, and allow all of this panoramic vision to come back online, and you'll feel the difference. Rhythmic movement, especially rocking, is an excellent neuromotor training mechanism. It has many long-term benefits for reorganizing your entire system, but it also has benefits in the moment. It also relieves stress and introduces safety into the body. Of course it does. We all naturally rock babies to soothe them. We rock ourselves, sometimes without knowing it, to soothe ourselves. Children do this all the time. Did you hear that? It's just an automatic sigh that came because I relaxed just from sitting here rocking back and forth. It's very powerful, and it's also very quick. So because it has long-term benefits to nervous system regulation, to trauma healing, to healing neuromotor deficiencies or immaturities, for brain health, it has all kinds of implications, this rhythmic rocking. So because it has all of these long-term benefits, you can do it outside of sex, of course, but it's very beneficial and very effective to do it during sex as well. So you can just rock yourself a bit. You can introduce actual rocking into whatever, if there's intercourse happening, you can bring actual rocking movement for both of you into it or just for yourself. You can also ask your partner to rock you. Or you can rock your partner. When you're rocking someone, you're also rocking. Similar to the embracing squeeze, weight itself delivers loads of safety information to the body, which is why everybody loves a weighted blanket, right? So you are held, you are compressed, you are safe, you are here, you're not gonna be floating away, right? You are compressed and held, and you're safe, it's okay. This extra gravity onto your body delivers lots of things, but one of them is safety. So you can actually ask your partner to lie on top of you and feel the weight of your partner's whole body on you, or part of your partner's body on part of your body. You can have a weighted blanket during sex. You can have those large bags of rice, which is a really cheap option to place over different areas of your body. You'd probably need to tell your partner what was going on if you're like putting rice on your belly during sex, but it does work. Another very effective technique is for your partner to push with his or her hand onto your pubic bone and hold you with weight there. This can be just after orgasm, especially effective then, but this communication of safety and that you're not too big for your body, that it's not too much, that you're not going to explode into nothingness and be released into darkness forever and ever. But this holding and pressure and weight on the pubic bone is another excellent way to feel safe and connected. This next technique is called micromovements, and it just means tiny motions, tiny movements to keep you out of freeze. So when we're applying it to sex, it doesn't match up exactly, but it still works. So in sex, as you know, we are experiencing at some point, most likely, immobilization, right? And so what we're aiming for is to still experience immobilization, not to avoid immobilization, but to experience it without fear. So we need that oxytocin to do that, right? To interrupt that old reptilian software or hardware of taking us into immobilization. We need oxytocin to interrupt that process so that we can be immobilized without fear. So we need safety and connection for that oxytocin to happen. So we aren't trying to avoid immobilization. However, I personally find that this technique really works for me. So I'm telling you about it in case it really works for you too. The idea is when you know yourself quite well and you know your triggers and you know your lateral movements really well and you know that you are about to go into a freeze state, you can keep yourself from going totally down into freeze by still moving, because if you're able to move, you're not able to freeze. And so people will squeeze balls, rub a ball on their neck, move their fingers and toes, bounce up and down a little bit. Any kind of small micro movement you can make to stay literally moving can help you stay out of freeze. But what I find is that in this state, especially for me, which is post-orgasm, I can get this sort of flush of sadness, which is very common. This flush of, it used to be shame and it's shifted into other things now. But I find that I can overcome and circumvent that process that's happening when I am totally still by continuing to move, by moving in these micro movements, by moving my fingers and toes, by wiggling a little bit, by moving my head back and forth. I can stay present, and I'm still in this post-orgasmic bliss state where I'm, certainly not making big movements, certainly not lots of energy happening. So in some ways I am still immobilized. But if I'm still moving a little bit, I can keep myself connected to my own experience, to my own pleasure, to the sort of blissful experience, to my partner, to what's happening in the environment, and not have to feel those feelings that I don't like to feel. I can exit that pathway of descending into those emotions by continuing to move. So if you identify with my kind of experience or something similar, try it. Try to just keep moving a bit. Because what happens to me when I have this flush of emotions is that it is when I am absolutely still. So if I keep moving a bit, then I don't have that process happening. So try it if you feel that that resonates. Ritual is such a beautiful thing. It introduces a spiritual dimension to your relationship, to your sexuality. It brings in meaning making. It's just this whole other space in our brains and in our experience of self, in our lives, that it's important not to neglect. Ritual is repeated, right? It's this sort of action that takes place, this intentional action that takes place outside of regular time and space. And when we repeat a ritual, it becomes tied to this predictability, right? That safety is in the predictability. So if you can have a ritual that the two of you do before sex, it is absolutely going to create this foundation of safety. It's going to trigger safety just by doing the activity. So that can be some of the things we've already talked about, like we have a ritual of embracing squeeze, or we do the hugging until relaxed. It can be some kind of touch-based, a movement or dance-based thing, something where you are making eye contact, set your timer for 4 minutes and we're gonna make eye contact, lighting candles or making the bed a certain way or doing the oils. Any kind of sensory experience is going to be really great for creating a ritual. One that I use with couples that I love so much is actually a women's circle exercise that's called Preparing the Bride. And I'm telling you, it's the most beautiful, tender thing I think I maybe have ever witnessed. And I get to witness it a lot because I make couples come to me and then do it. So Preparing the Bride, it requires you to have some things on hand. So I use little strings of battery-operated lights, rose petals or other kinds of flowers, definitely oils. I use crystals and all kinds of jewelry and scarves. You can also use food. And you have your partner lie down, or you lie down. I have my couples take turns with this. So one person lies down and the other backs away. And you look at your partner with fresh eyes. You look at your partner not as, your partner's name and personality and the way that your partner acts, but as a representative of the divine, as a god or goddess, as a king or queen, as, royal, divine, holy, a miracle, because that is what this person is. This person is a miracle. This is a bag of bones with breath inside that is alive and that you get to love. This person is alive on this planet at the same time as you, and it is a miracle. And so you shift into a space where you can see your partner with fresh eyes, and then you gather these materials and you approach and honor your partner by draping scarves across the body and putting these lights around the head, a headband here, and putting crystals in the palms. And you honor your partner as a representative of the divine, as this miracle person with all of these beautiful items. using the scarves and the jewelry, you create this ritual where you are honoring this person so deeply. You're letting what you're creating around and for your partner be this act of service and devotion. You make him or her look like the miracle they are. And then you switch. Or you can do one of you this time and the other one goes the next time. But this particular ritual of seeing with fresh eyes and of honoring this higher part, this higher dimension, by creating meaning, it drives your connection much, much deeper. Nicole Daedone wrote a book called Slow Sex, and you may have heard of the book or heard of orgasmic meditation or OMing. It's become this huge thing. I actually didn't even know what it had turned into. I read the book maybe 9 years ago and really liked it. So I was reminding myself of exactly what it was for this course, and then saw a lot of stuff. It's turned into this sort of machine. So I don't know and don't endorse any of this stuff like that, but the bare bones of it, I think, for some people can be a really, really effective and healing exercise. So the bare bones of it is that your partner stimulates up and down the upper left quadrant of your clitoris for 15 minutes. And that's the practice, and it can be every day or not, but that's the practice. Sort of set a timer and decide 15 minutes, and it's not part of sex, it's outside of sex, and it's not linked with orgasm. Orgasm can and often does happen, but that's not the point of it. And it's 15 minutes, and you stick to 15 minutes no matter what else is happening. What it does is really allow for your experience of your own pleasure or your experience of genital stimulation to be removed from any expectation around sex or around mutuality, tit for tat, around your partner's expectations. It's like all of that context gets to be removed. And that is extremely healing, especially considering the messages that we've been inundated with around women's sexuality our entire lives. This is a commitment from your partner to show up for you, no strings attached, for 15 minutes. It's just about you and your body. That's it. So if that sounds appealing to you, then I suggest that you introduce the idea to your partner. You could even get that book. I think it might be a little bit hard to find now. I think it might be out of print, but maybe you can get a used copy. But there's loads of information about OMing online. What they've done with it, I think, is take it into like workshop contexts with strangers. This specifically, what I'm talking about is together with your partner that you're trying to cultivate safety with. But if you don't have a partner, you can absolutely do this same kind of thing for yourself. So you can do it in the context of masturbation and still get many of the healing benefits, because you are, again, divorcing this narrative of orgasm and climax and end result from the pleasure, sensory stimulation, the experiential part of it. You're removing them from each other, and then you get to see what is left, what comes up, what's there without all that context and expectation. Journaling is not necessarily a somatic tool, although you can argue that it is. But if you journal after sex, both of you, you and your partner, it's a really fantastic way to sort of have some space holding happening. It's almost like being in therapy, because it's not the two of you having to confront or discuss or communicate about what just happened, but it's the two of you separately communicating towards a third source, which is the journal itself. So conversations and communication become much easier when you have this third party, this way to communicate to something else, and then your partner can read what you wrote and you can read what your partner wrote about the experience that you just had. Emotionally, physically, what were your reflections, what were your feelings? Because it can be really hard to afterwards, maybe you want to talk about it, or maybe your partner wants to talk about it, or maybe nobody wants to talk about it, and it can be hard to get it going and direct the conversation. But if you both commit to having this journal practice, it makes that process a lot easier. A couple in New York have created what they call a sex journal, and there's a Kickstarter campaign. They've been shipped out, and I don't have mine yet to show you, but it looks fantastic, and the reviews are really great. So I think there are specific prompts and questions for you to answer, and if I get it before this is over, then I'll share it with you. I don't have an affiliation with them at all, but I think the concept is really fantastic, and like I said, people have loved it who have used it. So you can Google it. It's called A Sex Journal, and you can see if it seems like something you might want to get. But otherwise, you can absolutely just use any old notebook and just write your experience, and then compare that and talk about it with your partner. If diving into hugely pleasurable relationship and playing hide and seek and all of these things, if it feels like it's just way too much, that you can't do that, there is another way to think about this, and it's through something called micro-moments. You can intentionally create these tiny, manageable moments. Whatever it is that you need reinforcing or you need healing in your system, you can make tiny, tiny moments because anything, any size, any length will help. You just need to create this new pathway, right? So it doesn't have to be that all of a sudden you're this most playful person, and you love hanging out with people, and you love looking people directly into the eye and having authentic smiles and prosody in your voice. No, you can use the micro moments philosophy. And even if you have 30 seconds of that, it's better than nothing. Even if you have a little bit of eye contact with your partner, if you have a little bit of activation and safety at the same time, if you have small moments of pleasure, small moments of immobilization and safety at the same time, small moments of connection, small moments of intimacy and safety, small moments of positive relationship during sex and outside of sex, that will help. Okay, so what of these can be done without divulging any of this information to your partner? Definitely the in-out, the vocalizing, extended exhale, the cues of safety, orienting to some degree. If you're popping up and going and staring at a tree, it might be a little bit odd, but to some degree orienting. Micro movements, the sensorimotor loop, attunement, using your memory, and panoramic vision. All of those can be done during sex without having to tell your partner that you're doing them. You may be someone who can easily talk to your partner about all of this information, whether you're in a committed relationship or not. This is not something that is difficult for you to talk about. Hey, I'm experimenting with safety and I've been taking this course and let's try this thing. It may not be a big deal. But you may be a person who struggles with what to say to your partner about this and just kind of has no idea. So I've put together an idea of a statement that you could use. I've learned some ways to work at the level of the body instead of the mind to change the way I experience sex and closeness. Even if my mind knows I'm safe, my body holds all the things that I've ever experienced. So it's really important to turn off the danger scanner. The body has certain ways that it listens to feel safe. Do you want to try some? So it's not putting any of blame or burden on your partner. It's not saying you make me feel unsafe. It's about, hey, I've learned that my body records the things that I've experienced, and there are ways to help that go smoother. So even if my mind knows that things are great and fun and cool, my body still holds on to things that I've experienced. And so my body needs to be told it's safe. Can we try some of these weird things that I read about or that I found out about? So you're offering the basic substance of what this is, and then asking, can we do it together? I do suggest that you keep a list of all of these available to you. So you write it down or you print it out or whatever, but that you have a quick reference for these things because it's so many and you're gonna forget them. But your specific homework is to pick any three of this list that sound interesting or that they resonate with what you like to do or maybe what you already do. I want you to pick 3 and practice them. So some of them are with other people, some of them are on your own, some of them are with your partner outside of sex, some of them are with your partner during sex or before sex or after sex. But I want you to pick 3 and practice them however you like in any of those categories for the next week until our final video comes. You got this, right? These are manageable things. These are things that you can do. I know that you can do them, and I know that doing them will help you feel better.